Yo, so if you consider it to be good or bad, 2018 has been quite a big year for film. I mean, we've had the latest installments in the Star Wars kind of history, Solo a Star Wars story. Put that over there. We've got a new addition to the Harry Potter franchise with the Crimes of Grindelwald. Mortal Engines gave stuff from Pixar, The Incredibles 2. It's been quite a big year for film. But my niche for the past few years has kind of been superhero movies or specifically comic book superhero movies. I've grown to love the MCU, the DCEU, and stuff from kind of Sony and from Fox for a while, to which I know Disney and Fox are currently in the midst of merging and stuff like that. But yeah, for a while, for the last few years, my niche has kind of been kind of superhero comic book movies, which I've grown quite a bit. I mean, but yeah, I mean, I have discovered a few that are comic books that are not superhero based. I mean, for example, this year I discovered Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, and that swiftly grew to be one of my favourite films. But yeah, as I said, most of the time, most of my visits to cinema this year were for kind of superhero movies. So, kind of, I'd like to kind of rank my top 6 here today. Now, two movies that I will not be including on this list are, one of them is Teen Titans Go to the movies, of which I didn't see it, so I can't really make a judgment on it. I didn't see Teen Titans Go. From what I gather from people, it wasn't actually a very good show, at least compared to the original Teen Titans series. And the other one that I'm not including on this list is Incredibles 2. I mean, personally, I loved Incredibles 2. I remember I went to see it, I loved it, but seeing as it's not actually a comic book movie, I can't count it on this list. So with that in mind, that leaves me with 5 Marvel movies and 1 DC movie to rank. And don't go ape shit if one of your favourite comic book movies is where it ends up on my list. I mean, this is only my list, this is only my personal opinion, so don't go ape if yours is in a different place. And feel free to share yours down below if you haven't seen this video, which, let's be honest, you probably won't. So anyway, diving into the superhero movies ranked, my number 6, bottom of my list, was Tom Hardy's Venom. Now, don't get me wrong, I actually thought this was quite a good film. I love all the films on this list, but yeah, I mean, compared to some of the others that managed to build up and create so much depth over time, this to me felt kind of... I mean, it was a good film. It was a good film, and Tom Hardy as Venom / Eddie Brock, that's perfect casting. I mean, I know there are going to be some fans who like Topher Grace in the role, but frankly, when I saw this movie, Tom Hardy just disappeared and he became Eddie Brock, and I just suddenly saw the movie and was like, yeah, this is what Venom should have been. So, yeah. I mean, the other movies on my list, I'll give a bit more than that, but Venom, for what it was pretty good. I'll admit, I was sceptical about it, but Venom, it was pretty good. Moving up one space is the latest entry in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Ant-Man and the Wasp. Once again, don't get me wrong, I love this film. This one was just kind of a ton of fun to watch. I mean, like the original Ant-Man from, I think it was 2015. Yeah, this continued on. It was just a ton of fun to watch. I mean, Evangeline Lilly and Paul Rudd were both brilliant in this role. And I think that after the previous movie that we've had, which don't worry, we'll get to, we kind of needed the kind of levity and kind of laugh out loud and humour that Ant-Man and the Wasp brought. I mean, it did have some very good moments, and it did have some very nice characters. I mean, the reason why it's kind of at number 5 is because the others on this list all kind of have a degree of kind of seriousness, whereas this, as I said after the last movie, this needed to be kind of a bit more light-hearted, which it was. But then there's very kind of little stakes in it until the end. But yeah, I enjoyed Ant-Man and the Wasp. I enjoyed all these movies, so... Anyway, at my number 4 is the one DC movie on this list, Aquaman. don't get me wrong, just because it's number 4, it just means that the top 3, I found it difficult to shift them, and I felt Aquaman didn't quite punch that barrier. But don't get me wrong, Aquaman I felt was brilliant. I mean, I personally feel this. I feel Aquaman was on par with Wonder Woman, and it did kind of give me a bit of faith for some of DC's other upcoming movies, such as Shazam, which is coming out next year. Just seeing this movie and seeing how they did Aquaman so well, for me, it gave me hope for the future DCEU movies. And frankly, with kind of all the criticism they get from critics, just a bit more hope for the future. And yeah, Jason Momoa, Amber Heard, Willem Dafoe, all of them were brilliant in this film. Yeah, it doesn't quite make my top 3, but yeah, it's definitely a good number 4. Anyway, at number 3, actually came out to be my personal favourite movie of the MCU so far. I might have talked about it earlier in the year. It was Black Panther. I mean, once again, I feel that this movie, if it was done wrong, could go spectacularly badly wrong. But this, to me, this has become my favourite MCU movie of the MCU. I do, don't get me wrong, I do love the Avengers and Guardians of the Galaxy, but this to me felt like an experience. I mean, I can't really talk very much about it from the character's point of view, but it was brilliant for me. I mean, it's difficult to say. I mean, all the characters in this are brilliant. I mean, Chadwick Boseman's brilliant. Martin Freeman even gets a few laughs, and that's brilliant. And it's just it's fun, but then it's also got an edge of seriousness. And I stand by, it is, I think, my favourite film of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But just because it's my favourite doesn't necessarily mean it's the best. Coming up at number 2 is Avengers Infinity War. Don't get me wrong, I loved Black Panther, but even I can see that Avengers Infinity War, wow. Just wow. I mean, this was pretty much what we had been waiting for since the end of the first Avengers, going back in 2012. This was what they were building up to, and wow, did it deliver. I mean, just them finally facing off against Thanos, with his Infinity Gauntlet, and bringing together almost every single character in the Marvel Cinematic Universe for this one event. I mean, this was huge. The only two that were missing were Jeremy Renner as Clint Barton and Paul Rudd as Ant-Man, but they're set to have major parts in Avengers Endgame coming out next year, and just this has set the stage for something spectacular. I mean, I hope they're going to deliver. I know they're going to deliver. But this was huge. This was devastating. And while I love Black Panther, who is also in the movie, this was what they'd been building towards, and it did not disappoint. But for me, surprisingly, it was only my number 2. My number 1 was a movie that I'd heard about. I hadn't actually intended to see, but as I said in my review of it, I'm so glad I did. Because surprisingly, for me, number 1 was Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Now, I mean, the rest of the movies all being live action, that was all well and good. But by doing this with animation, with the style of animation they use, this felt like a comic book movie. I mean, this felt like a movie had been made just straight out of the comic book, and we were watching the comic panels come to life. I don't know how they did it, but I may have been skeptical of Sony's Spider-Man movies. I mean, I enjoyed some of them. I mean, I even enjoyed parts of Amazing Spider-Man 2, but this was new. This was good. This was extraordinary. And subsequently, I'm going to have to put Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse top of my comic book movies rank list. I mean, I'm not sure I quite understand why it's so much higher than the others, but yeah, it was. And it was brilliant. Well, there you go. My 6 comic book movies from throughout the year get ranked for you. Yeah, I thought it was pretty good. Anyway, let's hope 2019 brings even more superhero greatness. Until then, see ya.